Fired at 58, broke and betrayed, then I found the secret that made me a millionaire. I'm Jim Thompson, and I never thought I'd be writing this at 58. Sitting in a diner with a lukewarm coffee, my hands still calloused from yesterday's odd job hauling scrap metal. But here I am. Let me start at the beginning. We clicked instantly. He saw something in me, a kid fresh out of trade school with grease under his fingernails and a head full of ideas. Roger wasn't just a boss, he was family. Weekends meant barbecues at his place, our kids splashing in the pool while we tinkered with prototypes in his garage. His wife Margie would roll her eyes and call us the two mad scientists. Over 35 years I designed over 24 patented machines for IM. Conveyor systems, hydraulic presses, you name it. The company exploded from 50 employees to 12,000, landing us in the Fortune 100. We weren't just building machinery, we were building futures. The founder, Roger Simon, was a legend. A gruff, brilliant engineer who wore flannel shirts like a uniform and carried a slide rule in his pocket long after everyone else switched to calculators. I joined industrial manufacturing in 1988 when the company was just 5 years old. Back then, it was little more than a warehouse in Dayton, Ohio, filled with grease-stained blueprints and the hum of lathes. Everything changed when Roger retired in 2018. His son, Terrence Simon, took over. Now, Terrence wasn't a bad kid, just entitled. Roger had bankrolled his failed startups for years, a vegan food truck, a VR gaming app, even a hemp-based cat furniture venture. But when Roger announced his retirement, Terrence suddenly developed a passion for the family business. For the first 2 years, Roger stayed involved as a consultant, and I mentored Terrence daily. But after Roger died on the 9th hole of Maplewood Golf Club, mid-swing no less, the wheels came off. Terrence shut me out. His MBA from Wharton meant nothing when clients started leaving. He'd strut into meetings, dismiss our engineers as dinosaurs, and chase flashy AI projects we had no infrastructure to support. By 2021, layoffs began. The break room, once buzzing with birthday cakes and fishing stories, felt like a morgue. 3 years later, IM filed for Chapter 11. The email came at 3 a.m. Your position has been eliminated. No severance, no warning. And when I checked my pension, gone. Turns out Terrence had funneled it into a restructuring fund. Imagine explaining to your grandkids why Grandpa's mowing lawns at 58. I applied everywhere, Walmart, auto shops, even a dog walking service. But online applications, they're designed to weed out anyone over 40. I'd type 35 years at industrial manufacturing and watch the screen mock me, no longer under consideration. My wife Linda hid her panic well. We'd paid off the house, thank God, but savings evaporated fast. We lived on canned beans and food stamps. I was grateful we had Medicaid for our medical needs. I took whatever cash jobs I could, roofing, dumpster cleaning, anything that didn't ask for a resume. Pride, a luxury for younger men. The turning point came in a dive bar called the Rusty Bolt. I'd just spent 8 hours clearing asbestos from an old factory, my shirt stiff with sweat and dust. That's when Harry Walsh, IM's former general counsel, slid onto the stool next to me.
Jesus, Jim, you look like you've been wrestling a cement mixer.
Just another day in paradise.
Are you a glutton for punishment or something? Wait, you do know about the patents, right?
What patents?
Roger never told you? All your inventions, the patents are in your name. He set it up back in '99. The royalties? Millions. Terrence has been licensing them illegally since Roger died.
My mind went blank. Millions? All this time I'd been scrubbing toilets while Terrence siphoned my life's work into his offshore accounts. Harry and I met the next morning. The paperwork was undeniable. Roger had quietly transferred every patent to me, reinvesting the royalties into a profit-sharing plan. Terrence had let the licensing agreements lapse, then kept using my designs without payment. The lawsuit was brutal. Terrence tried to claim Roger gifted the patents back to IM, but the judge wasn't having it. Worse, forensic audits revealed he'd embezzled $40 million to cover gambling debts, including ties to a Vegas syndicate. By the trial's end, Terrence got 5 years in prison. The court seized his assets, his penthouse, his Porsche, even his Rolex collection, to repay the pensions. With the patents finally mine, I launched Phoenix Manufacturing in 2024. Harry joined as COO. We leased IM's old Dayton facility, bank-owned and dirt cheap, and hired back every former colleague who'd answer my call. Clients returned within months. Turns out loyalty matters when your competitor's CEO is in orange jumpsuit number 87462. 2 years in, we're rivaling IM's peak revenue. The break room's got a popcorn machine and a poster of Roger grinning under the words, "Build it right." As for Terrence, he's up for parole soon. I've left word at the prison. There's a janitorial job here if he wants it. Minimum wage, sure. But if he's willing to learn, I'll teach him. Not for his sake, but for Roger's. Life's a funny thing. One day you're a millionaire in hiding, the next you're scrubbing grease traps. But here's what I've learned. Betrayal doesn't define you. What matters is what you rebuild. And Roger? Wherever he is, I hope he's finally relaxing. That man could not golf. Feel free to share this story, or better yet, pass it to Terrence's cellmate.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into, it's a really unexpected and compelling story.
It really is. It's all about loyalty, betrayal, and then this remarkable comeback.
Yeah. The sources we looked at detail the journey of Jim Thompson. He was a dedicated employee at a company called Industrial Manufacturing, or IM.
Right. And we'll see his path, from the really promising early days.
When it was a startup founded by Roger Simon.
Exactly. Through this devastating fall under Roger's son, Terrence.
And then just when you think it's over, there's this unforeseen discovery that changes absolutely everything.
Leading to a whole new company, Phoenix Manufacturing.
And this isn't just a dry business case for you listening. It's a deeply human story. Loads of twists.
Definitely. And some valuable lessons, I think, about trust, resilience.
And that sort of hidden value people bring to their work, right?
Exactly. We're going to unpack how one person navigated just this incredible career and, frankly, financial upheaval.
It's a powerful illustration, isn't it? How quickly things can change in business.
Totally. And the capacity for people to rebuild after, facing real adversity.
What's also fascinating, I found, is the contrast in leadership styles.
Oh, absolutely, between Roger and Terrence. And the long-term consequences of their choices. It's stark.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's go back to the beginning, 1988.
Right. Jim joins Industrial Manufacturing. Back then, it's just a small warehouse operation, Dayton, Ohio.
Founded by this guy, Roger Simon. The sources paint him as a gruff, brilliant engineer.
Yeah, a real hands-on type. Flannel shirts. Always had a slide rule, apparently.
It sounds like Jim and Roger developed this really strong bond pretty quickly, too.
It definitely went beyond just boss and employee. More like a partnership, almost from the get-go.
The sources mention weekend barbecues, tinkering in the garage together.
Roger's wife, Margie, apparently called them her two mad scientists.
That really paints a picture, doesn't it? A collaborative, innovative vibe right from the start.
It does. And it highlights how important that founder-employee alliance can be, especially early on.
And it wasn't just vibes, right? This partnership was incredibly productive.
Oh, absolutely. Over the next, 35 years, Jim was the powerhouse behind the innovation at IM.
Designing over 24 patented machines. Things like advanced conveyor systems, hydraulic presses.
These weren't just tweaks either. These were fundamental innovations.
Yeah, the kind that fueled massive growth. They went from 50 employees
to 12,000 and became a Fortune 100 company.
It really sounds like they felt they were building futures together, building something significant.
And Jim's contribution really underscores a key business lesson, I think.
What's that?
Recognizing and, crucially, valuing the innovation within your own team. It's vital for long-term success.
Roger's faith in Jim paid off directly. You see it in the company's growth.
Exactly. Tangible results.
But then, the story takes a sharp turn. Roger retires in 2018.
And his son, Terrence Simon, takes the helm.
And the contrast between father and son, according to the sources, it couldn't be more stark.
No kidding. Roger, the experienced engineer. Terrence, his background was different.
Yeah, a history of failed startups, a vegan food truck, a VR gaming app.
Don't forget the hemp-based cat furniture.
Right. And then suddenly he's interested in this major industrial manufacturing company.
Seemed a bit out of left field. Maybe ill-informed is the diplomatic way to put it.
It definitely raises questions for family businesses, doesn't it?
It does. Is passion for the legacy enough? Or do you need the actual skills for that industry?
Terrence's background suggests maybe a misalignment there.
A potential one, yeah. Between his experience and what the company actually needed.
Now, initially, Roger stayed involved. He was a consultant.
And Jim was even mentoring Terrence for a bit. Trying to ease the transition, it sounds like.
Right. It seemed like a planned handover. But then, the big turning point. Roger dies unexpectedly.
Yeah, while golfing, the sources say.
And after Roger's death, Terrence's behavior seemed to change quite dramatically.
It really did. He basically shut Jim out, started dismissing the experienced engineers.
The ones with all the institutional knowledge who'd driven the innovation for years.
Calling them dinosaurs. That's the word used.
And instead, he pours resources into these, trendy AI projects.
Without the right infrastructure to even support them properly. It shows that potential pitfall. Right.
What, the allure of the new shiny thing?
Exactly. It can overshadow the importance of your core business, your core strengths.
And the consequences weren't slow in coming.
No. Client relationships started falling apart. Relationships built over decades.
Which led to significant layoffs by 2021.
And the whole company culture just tanked, became demoralized.
It sounds like all those core values Roger had built just eroded incredibly quickly.
It really highlights how fragile success can be when experienced leadership and, a real understanding of the company's foundations are just tossed aside.
Terrence's actions become a bit of a cautionary tale, really.
Definitely. About neglecting your core expertise to chase unproven strategies.
So the ultimate downfall wasn't far behind. Just 3 years later, IM files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
A major step, allowing the company to try and reorganize its debts under court supervision.
And for Jim, he gets this jarring email at 3 a.m.
3 in the morning.
Wow, telling him his position is eliminated, effective immediately. No severance, no warning.
After 35 years?
Yeah.
That's brutal.
But the real kicker, the absolute gut punch, was finding out his pension was gone.
Gone. How?
Apparently funneled into some kind of restructuring fund that Terrence controlled.
Unbelievable. The lack of transparency there.
After 3.5 decades of dedication, it's just devastating.
It really illustrates how precarious things can be for employees, even long-term loyal ones.
That sudden termination, no severance, the pension vanishing, it points to some seriously unethical stuff going on.
Yeah, with huge impacts on people's actual lives.
So Jim's now 58, suddenly jobless in a really tough spot.
Yeah, having to explain that to his grandkids, that must have been incredibly difficult.
And finding new work proved almost impossible.
Why was that?
He describes sending out applications online, and his decades of experience at IM, it actually counted against him.
Oh, so? Ageism.
Sounds like it. Getting automatically rejected. The algorithms maybe flagged 35 years at one company as undesirable.
That's a huge societal issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Undervaluing experienced workers.
His skills, his knowledge honed over decades, seen as a negative by these automated systems.
So it's backwards.
And financially, things got desperate fast.
I can imagine. Savings probably didn't last long.
No, they evaporated quickly. They ended up relying on food stamps.
Wow.
And Medicaid for healthcare, which he said was a crucial lifeline. He was grateful for that.
Sure, but still a huge fall.
And he just had to take any work he could find.
Yeah.
Mowing lawns, roofing.
Really physically demanding stuff.
Even cleaning dumpsters. He said losing his professional pride became a luxury he just couldn't afford.
That really hits home. The human cost of this corporate failure, this betrayal.
Yeah, his willingness to do that work. It says a lot about his resilience, though, his determination.
Absolutely. Just trying to provide for his family through that crisis.
But then the story takes this completely unexpected turn, a real twist.
Okay, I'm ready for this.
So Jim's finished a grueling day doing asbestos removal work.
Tough job.
He ends up in this local dive bar, the Rusty Bolt.
Okay.
And who does he run into but Harry Walsh, the former general counsel for IM?
The company's chief lawyer. Wow, a chance meeting.
Yeah, it really underscores how these unforeseen connections can just unravel everything. Harry being there at that moment, pivotal.
What happened?
Well, Harry notices Jim looks exhausted, makes a comment. But then he asks this question.
Yeah.
He says something like, "You do know about the patents, right?"
And Jim?
Had no idea what he was talking about. What patents?
Whoa. Okay, so what were the patents?
This is where it gets incredible. It turns out, Roger.
The founder.
Yeah, with amazing foresight and, frankly, integrity. He had quietly transferred ownership of all of Jim's invention patents.
Ones Jim designed.
Yes, into Jim's own name, way back in 1999.
No way. He put them in Jim's name, not the company's.
In Jim's name. An incredible act of trust and recognition. And it had been secret all these years.
Wow, what a move by Roger. Really commendable, giving the credit and ownership to the innovator.
But wait, it gets crazier. These patents, they'd been generating serious money.
Royalty.
Millions of dollars in royalties.
And Jim didn't know.
Nope. And Terrence, since Roger's death, he'd been illegally licensing them.
Illegally. Because they were in Jim's name.
Exactly. And siphoning all that royalty money into offshore accounts.
While Jim was mowing lawns and cleaning dumpsters.
While Jim was facing financial ruin, the level of betrayal is just staggering.
It really highlights how crucial it is to understand and protect intellectual property, doesn't it?
For sure. Roger's act of trust was amazing, but Terrence just completely exploited it.
So what happened right after this revelation in the bar?
Well, things moved fast. Jim and Harry met up properly. They got the paperwork.
And it was clear.
Undeniable. Roger had legally transferred every patent to Jim. The documents even showed initial royalties had gone into a profit-sharing plan for Jim.
So Terrence wasn't just passively benefiting, he was actively, illegally licensing Jim's property.
Yes. He hadn't just failed to renew things properly, he'd actively kept the illegal licensing going after Roger died.
Okay, so lawsuit time.
You bet. And the legal battle revealed the full extent of what Terrence had done.
Did Terrence have any defense?
He tried to claim Roger had somehow gifted the patents back to the company.
But the paperwork from '99 contradicted that.
Completely. It was a weak defense, quickly shot down.
And did anything else come out?
Oh, yeah. Forensic audits dug deeper. They found Terrence had embezzled around $40 million.
$40 million? What for?
Covering huge gambling debts and apparently connections to some kind of Vegas syndicate.
Wow. It just kept getting worse.
So the legal hammer came down.
What were the consequences for Terrence?
He got a 5-year prison sentence. And his assets were seized: luxury penthouse, Porsche, his Rolex collection.
To pay back the stolen funds?
To help repay the pensions he'd raided. So some measure of accountability, at least.
Yeah, though it came after so much damage was done. It shows how long it can take to uncover fraud like that.
And recovering assets offers some compensation, but it doesn't undo the harm.
True. So that brings us to the comeback. The Phoenix manufacturing part.
Exactly. The really inspiring part. So in 2024, Jim launches Phoenix Manufacturing.
Rising from the ashes, literally.
Right. And guess who his COO is?
Harry Walsh, the lawyer from the bar.
The very same. And strategically, they leased IM's old facility in Dayton.
The same place.
It was bank-owned by then. After the bankruptcy, they got it cheap.
Smart move.
And maybe the most telling thing, Jim rehired loads of his former colleagues from IM.
That says a lot, doesn't it? About the loyalty and respect he commanded.
Absolutely. It shows the enduring value of those professional relationships, his reputation.
His ability to rebuild that team so quickly and attract former clients, too, I bet.
Yeah, the turnaround was incredibly swift. Clients were likely disillusioned with Terrence anyway.
Probably relieved to work with Jim again.
And the atmosphere at Phoenix Manufacturing sounds completely different from the end days at IM.
Oh, so?
They got a popcorn machine in the break room.
Nice touch.
And a big poster of Roger, the founder, with the motto, "Build it right."
Simple. Powerful. A clear statement of intent.
Yeah, commitment to quality, integrity. The things Terrence abandoned.
It really highlights how a strong ethical foundation can help a business regain trust and momentum quickly.
Now, the story has one more little twist. Terrence is apparently nearing parole eligibility.
Okay. Is Jim involved?
He is, in a really surprising way. He's communicated an offer to the prison.
An offer? For Terrence?
Yeah, a job. As a janitor at Phoenix Manufacturing.
After everything.
Minimum wage, obviously. But Jim framed it as a chance to learn, maybe re-enter the workforce.
That's Jim's motivation there. Forgiveness.
The source suggests it's not about forgiving Terrence personally. It's more about honoring Roger's memory and values.
That's complex. Extending a hand, even to the person who caused so much harm, as a way of upholding Roger's legacy.
Seems like it. A really nuanced act driven by respect for the past, not necessarily for Terrence himself.
That speaks volumes about Jim's character. Not about retribution, but maybe offering a path, however humble.
So, wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway here for you listening?
I think, echoing Jim's own thoughts, it's that betrayal, no matter how deep it cuts. It doesn't have to be the end of the story.
Right. It's the rebuilding, the character shown after the fall that really defines things.
Exactly. Resilience matters.
And I loved that little detail about Jim thinking about Roger's golf game. Just adds that human touch.
Yeah. And apparently Jim even thought about sharing this whole story with Terrence's cellmate. Shows the universality, maybe.
Ultimately, this deep dive into Jim's journey, it really offers you some significant insights, doesn't it?
For sure. The complexities of leadership transitions, especially in family businesses.
The devastating impact when ethics go out the window at the top.
But also the incredible power of individual integrity and innovation. How they can fuel recovery.
It really underscores that often unseen value, right? The long-term contributions of employees.
And the potential for new beginnings, even after hitting rock bottom.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider. In any organization, think about the real long-term consequences, not just on the bottom line, but on people's lives. When leaders prioritize, say, short-term trends or personal gain over the workforce's well-being and loyalty.
Yeah, and what are those hidden assets in a company? The deep knowledge, the quiet loyalties, the individual talents.
How can those be protected? But also, how can they be leveraged to build genuine, sustainable success, not just chasing the next shiny object?
Build it right, like Roger's poster said.
Exactly. Build it right. Lots to think about there.